What happens when two successful entrepreneurs get together for a drink? They talk shop, of course. So grab your favorite cocktail and sit alongside Scott DeLong and Vince Moiso, two seasoned business leaders that have driven their own companies to success, as they share from their experience and dive deep into the secret sauce that can turn a company around. The CEO Podcast starts now.
We're back again at the CEO Podcast. I'm Scott DeLong. I'm here with Vince Moiso. And today we're going to talk about the difference between employee engagement, which is something that we've used to always talk about in leading businesses, to the new term and a new way of looking at the world. And that's through the employee experience, which actually leads to employee engagement. A better experience for them gets them into the game more, right?
No doubt.
So there's several things that I've been paying attention to. I've been on a lot of meetings with this and with people from SHRM, the Society of Human Resources Management, all that. And there's been a lot of study going on. And employee experience is the way of looking at things now. It's kind of like in the technology world, user interface versus user experience, a UI versus UX, right? Yeah. So they're both important, but it's the experience of the customer that's going to keep them coming back. And one of the things that they talked about is the difference between, as we measure employee engagement, you're looking at output. You're looking at output numbers, right? Are they getting the work done? Are they proactive with their teams? Are they doing that kind of stuff? So that was what engagement looks like to us. And maybe there's more to it, from your point of view. How do you see engagement? Just stay there for a minute. Employee engagement. How would you measure that in the old ways?
Well, one could argue that employee engagement is wholly dependent on employee experience, right? And performance is a key component of that. So as you measure engagement, so I think of it in terms, when I even think about the subject, I think of it in terms of, the culture of a business that people just show up. If you hear an employee, right, a team member that's saying this is just a paycheck, then I can tell you with 100% certainty that you aren't getting full output from that employee. That's right. You are only getting enough engagement so that they get their paycheck, they go home, and they're pretty shut off at that point. And that brings us up to now, 2021, and I would make this argument with the next generation of employee that's coming into the workforce. It's expected. In fact, the employee experience now, what I get in interviews is they want to know what the company. They're asking these questions. What's the company culture like? What are the benefits like? What are the people like within your business? They want to know what the average tenure of employees within the business. These are the questions I'm getting in interviews.
That's interesting though, because the millennial crowd has a shorter life expectancy for their job than people of my age group did.
Sure.
There's no cradle to grave kind of jobs anymore, and they're turning over every 2.5 years. But they're asking you about how long people are staying.
Well, I think that must be an indicator, and I can only I can make some assumptions. I don't have fully direct feedback from those people, but what I think is they are equating, especially with key positions. So I've answered that question in this way: is like I have several key positions that have been with the business 5 or more years. I have a couple other key positions where those individuals have been with the company 10 or more years, and I think that talks to the stability of the business. So I don't think they're thinking coming into that position that they're only going to be there for 2 or 3 years or 4 years. The reality is the world we live in today, where back when a pension was a thing, which it is for some, but not so much for the normal for-profit business these days. But when a pension was a thing, it was great. I'm going to be here. I'm going to grow within that business, and I'm going to work there 30 years, and then walk off into the sunset. Today, if you want to grow your career, or if you have aggressive aspirations to grow your career, the likeliness of you doing that within a single, especially a small business, is very low. I mean, because the reality is if you want that next position, it's going to be with another company. So I don't think it's just a millennial thing. I do think it's just the nature of the way business has adapted and shifted and evolved, that the person that has aspirations, career growth, things like that, they're looking outward, and therefore that makes the employee experience that much more important.
Well,
right?
sure.
Because if you want to retain key people, then the experience you provide to them is what's going to keep them there longer than what they'd normally be.
So even though that they know in the back of their mind that they're not going to be there for the rest of their career,
Yeah.
they're still interested in the pattern of growth, though. What are you doing for me to personal and professional development kind of areas?
Absolutely.
Those are really important to young people today in particular. And that's something that belongs certainly in the employee experience category.
Well, you said the key word to me is development, right? So one of the things that I shifted in, and really, I'd say in the past 5 years, especially as I've learned more and more about HR, I've been more sensitive and attentive to learning more about HR and this kind of new evolution of the way business is going. The word development is critical, because what it was before was just purely about training. Right? I'm just going to train you for these tactics, for the role and responsibility for your position. And now what I know as a business, what we've shifted to is I'm just going to develop you as a human being. I'm going to do everything I can to develop you as a human being, as a person. And I know that development is going to carry over into the role and responsibility that you have.
That leads to the next two portions of that. So training is still important.
Yeah.
They need to know how to do that job, and maybe even the next job. But it's training, coaching, and mentoring.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a combination of those three things.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to keep people engaged, you need to participate in training, coaching, and mentoring.
Yeah.
So what does mentoring mean, right? So you've got a young person that's working for you or working for you. That you don't have to be the mentor all the time, but somebody with some experience, somebody with a little gray hair, someone who's been around a little bit, needs to show that person the ropes.
Yeah.
Teach them the unwritten rules of the workplace.
Yeah.
Now, the older person is actually learning the new unwritten rules of the new workplace as well by hanging out with that young person. So it's not a one-way situation from what I've seen. It's that the older people are getting a better handle on what the millennials. Gen X is almost us anymore. So you're probably an X, right?
I am an Xer.
Yeah, you're probably an Xer. But the millennials and then the Zs are teaching us as much as we think we're teaching them.
Yeah.
On how to relate in the new workplace. So when we talk about employee experience, right? So I think absolutely I'm going to go back to engagement. What we used to think was you pay people well, you treat them with dignity and respect, and you give them 2 weeks vacation, and you're going to get great engagement. That's the way it used to be. Oh, and a pension if you want to keep them there a long time, right? That's the way it used to be. And things have changed right now. So there's more to it, especially in the new workplace, right?
Yeah.
The technology is going to be a big part of this. What tech are we giving these folks or making available to them as well? So in the hybrid or the work from home concept,
which is new, by the way. So, which we cover in another podcast. And I got to tell you, you have to add that. I'm so glad you brought that up, because you have to add that into the mix of this employee experience. Because now all of a sudden, what we're faced with, and I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday, I think, in the financial world, and they are moving to another company because the company that she's currently with is going to require her to be back full time in the office, and she doesn't want to go back.
Yeah.
So she wants that flexibility now. So now she's choosing experience over the comfort of sticking with the things she knows.
Yeah. So when we talk about technology's gotten better and better and cheaper and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
However, you still need to provide people with really good tools.
Yeah.
So I know when the pandemic started, companies scrambled for webcams, right? Because some people took their towers and took them home, and they needed some webcams so they can get on their Zoom calls and Teams and all the rest of that. And the sound is crappy, the video quality is crappy. So investing in tech, it's an extra $100 an employee. Let's call it that. for them to feel like they matter. Like you're willing to, oh yeah, like give me this crappy stuff or give me the good stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We had to scramble. We had to get it done. I get that. But if you want to keep people engaged, upgrade them. Right. Get the technology that they're looking for. And it's not just technology and audio and video, but it's all communications.
Yeah.
So whether we're going to go to Slack or Teams or any of those other kind of things that people are getting used to right now, you're going to have to be able to provide that. It's just part of the expected experience. So what I want to get to, though, is the unexpected experience. Not unexpected, but the experience that is not demanded, but what else we can do for folks, right? The kind of things that you can take care of and all. And one of the most overlooked tools that I've seen in almost every company I've worked for is mid-level management and the experience that the employee has with them. It's really important for the executives to live the values, set the vision, start working on that culture, but that frontline employee is dealing with their manager much more than they're dealing with you. And we're not equipping these folks well enough yet. We have not taken the time, the effort, and the money
We're not
to
equipping
train
middle management.
the middle management people in order to handle the new workplace.
Okay.
I've had courses where I actually got one called Leadership for a Frontline Manager, where I put some what I thought were like normal kind of procedures in place and let people know about them.
Yeah.
And I thought it was kind of be a boring presentation. And some of these folks said, "Wow, that's impressive." Like, no, it's normal now. The one-on-one meeting. Let's go with that, right? Instead of the annual or quarterly reviews, the one-on-one meeting with your manager.
Yeah.
Why is that important? Because when people quit, they quit because of bad management. And they're not talking about the executives. They're talking about their manager and the relationship they have with their manager.
Yeah.
The fastest way to solve that, in my mind, is having an effective one-on-one frequently. Not some folks can handle once a month, some are every other week. But I'm going to suggest, especially for the newer employees, having that one-on-one conversation every week and reversing the classroom. So the one-on-one conversation is not about what the company needs from you, asking you. The first portion of the meeting, if I'm having a one-on-one with you, you work for me, having a one-on-one for you, I want to hear about what I can do for you first. Go back to John Kennedy, right? It's what can you do for them kind of concept. And that is the fastest way to start building a relationship with the people that are working for the direct frontline managers.
I know this doesn't happen often. I am going to disagree with you. I have a different perspective.
I don't mind you being wrong.
I have a different perspective on management. I think it goes to two things.
Okay.
And the first is what we talked about earlier, which is development. So here's what I think. I think companies have not gone on board, or I think they're leaving more often than not. What I find and what I have experienced is the small business leaves middle management to their own accord. Literally just like sink or swim. I'm going to throw you in with the sharks.
We're not disagreeing there.
No, oftentimes it's they take the high performer, whether that's in sales or whatever, and they go, shit, you're going to make a great manager. And they put them in management, but they don't develop them as a manager.
That's right.
So then you're scratching your head like, well, why are all these other employees leaving right now? Because you don't have good management and because you didn't develop your manager, and that's on you, not on. And you did a total disservice, like a lot of companies do, a total disservice to these high performers by putting them in a management position because they fail. They completely fail, and the fail rate is very high. By the way, very high, and I think it's a direct result of development. I don't disagree that one-on-one meetings are important. I don't think it's the only thing that either develops or turns that around. I think companies need to get on board to develop managers to be leaders, because what you're asking them to do is manage people. Yeah. So if I'm a high performer, sales or otherwise, I'm used to performing. Okay. No one ever taught me to manage people. Right. Now you want me to manage people because you think I'm going to be good at that automatically. You're assuming.
So I've got a good story about that.
You're assuming that I'm just going to be able to do that without developing me as a person. Let me get to my second thing before I get on, and I want to hear this story. So my second thing is, again, while I think the one-on-one is good and I think it's important, I don't think that's the thing that connects a manager with, say, customer service or admin or whatever that is. To me, it's the daily huddle. And I know that from very, very
So
direct
that's even more
experience.
frequent than what I'm asking
So
for.
I'm talking,
we're not
I'm talking
disagreeing too
daily
much.
huddle, which
Yeah.
is literally can be amongst, say, 6 people, 7, 8 people, and it's a 15 to 20 minute call. Everybody has 1 to 2 minutes to talk about the priority that they have for the day, where they're going to be, and what they're working on. And everybody has a shot at, like, okay, do I need this from you? Only what's important in the now, in the present. And you do that every day. I can tell you the feedback that I get from my employees is they've never felt more connected. And when we don't have that daily huddle, they feel disconnected.
So
and
does your
I've
huddle-
never felt more connected.
Does your huddle then deal with just what's important from the business point of view, or are you dealing with people's lives too? Did you get into any of
No,
that?
oh, absolutely.
I'm
because
sick today, or my
Yeah.
child's a problem, or
and we
whatever.
want
Yeah,
it. So
good,
so we
good,
create
good.
this flexibility of, like, it's okay, life happens.
Yeah.
And here's what we want. I don't want you. So here, to me, in our business, here, this, if somebody just calls in and says, I'm not going to be there today, click. Now we're scrambling and it's like, okay, we got to fill the hole. If somebody comes on that huddle and says, unfortunately, I'm not feeling well today, I don't know how productive I'm going to be, I'm going to take the day off. And then it's like, cool. What did you have going on that was a priority? This, and this. Great. Okay, Joe, can you take care of that for today? Can you cover for this person, right? So then immediately in that daily huddle, we've shifted and we know what the priorities are. And now we're going to cover that and nothing gets lost. And by the way, that person feels great because there's nothing worse than missing a couple of days, because the way that our culture is, you let your team down and you feel, everybody feels that accountability. They come back to work, they let the team down, and they're not feeling great about themselves and they were just getting over being sick. That doesn't happen in our culture. It doesn't happen because I call it setting the table, because our people set the table before they leave. And guess what? You're entitled to that vacation. Go take the vacation. We want you to take that vacation. Right. You need that day off to go move your kid into college or school starting, and take that day. It's okay. Take the day. Just set the table before you know you're going to take that day. The daily huddle accounts for that.
So one thing I'm going to say on top of that is yes, the manager in that daily huddle is kind of redirecting traffic and playing point guard and getting things to where they need to be and all that. But I think the most powerful statement they can say at the beginning of that, when you're telling me you're having a bad time, whatever the struggle is going to be, the first thing I look at you and say, how can I help?
It's so funny.
How can I help?
That's exactly how we start by the way, that's how we start our huddles. So if I'm on that huddle and I'm leading that huddle, everybody, says their priority, and then I do the same. By the way, I'm not exempt from telling people where I'm at, what my priorities are for that day, and how they can get a hold of me. And I start off always by saying, how can I help? And what that's created is, in the huddle, every person says that. Every person says, how can I help?
They want to pick up the slack.
They say, here's my priority.
Yep.
I do have some capacity today. How can I help? And so you get to this culture that's created about it. Then the middle manager, the manager, matters less when you've got all of a sudden the support mechanism that's created out of that, of a lot of people that are willing to help each other.
So there's so much I can unpack on that, right? So the middle.
Well, I'm going to get there, because go ahead and unpack it, and I want to hear. You didn't get a chance to tell.
No, I didn't tell my story.
So I want you to tell your story, and I want to unpack that. So that was a very intentional point that I made. So
let's go back to the story first, and then we can start and see where that goes.
Go.
So it was a flaw in me, right? And something that I did really poorly. So we mentioned earlier that I played baseball. I did pretty well, pretty successful in my baseball career. And I went back as soon as I got done, had a job that was a pretty cake job. I got done by noon. And I went back to the old college that I played at, and I coached in the afternoons. Every afternoon I'd get off work and I'd go coach these young people. And it's really good coaches, but I was just the new guy, and I was going to handle the outfielders because I could teach them everything there is to know about outfield, because I was so good at it. I could teach them how to bunt. I could teach them how to hit. I could teach them all this crap, right? The fact of the matter was I sucked at coaching. I sucked at it. And here's the thing. I was an All-American, and I expected these freshmen and sophomores to be as good as I just was a year ago.
Yeah.
Without the extra experience, without the extra training, without the extra coaching. They're at a junior college. I was at a 4-year school. So I learned stuff, and I expected them to know already. I expected them to be able to do already. So that's the problem with the high performer, individual contributor turning into a manager without any development on how to manage people. These freshmen and sophomores could not do what I could have done as a senior or 1 year out of playing.
Great anecdote.
Right?
Yep.
It just, and I didn't realize it until I saw some looks on some of these kids' faces.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of saying things like, guy made a great catch, right? Went out of his way and made a great catch. And he comes back in, he's all excited. And I said, if you would have noticed where the pitch was going, you could have got a better jump on the ball. You wouldn't have had to make a great catch. What a dick. Sorry.
That was pretty bad.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. Hopefully I got it better since then. So anyway, that's my anecdote.
That's great.
Individual contributors do not become great managers without development in management, leadership.
Yeah, without question.
They don't.
Yeah, it's the responsibility of the company to provide that. No doubt.
Yeah. And if you don't, they'll go somewhere else faster than they would otherwise. There's an old saying that says the CFO is talking to the CEO, and the CFO says, well, what if we pour all this money into these people and they leave for the next job?
Yeah.
And the CEO looks at him and says, what if we don't pour the money into them and they stay? Which is worse.
It's way the latter.
Yeah,
is much worse. No doubt. We'll unpack what I said. So what to repeat what I said is that I said when you all of a sudden create this culture of that accountability within your team, and all of a sudden you've got your team offering help, right, every single day, and when you have that daily huddle, it relieves the manager quite a bit, right? It makes that manager less relevant. So unpack that.
Yeah, well, I'm going back to the sports analogy again. And when you have an all-star team, people that just came together for the first time, you need a good manager in order to make that team work. Okay, just okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a championship kind of level team, people that are working together, the manager's almost insignificant. All he does is say when the pitcher comes in and when we replace the quarterback, right?
Yep.
That's all they do at that point, because it's the players that the interdependency on the players, each knowing what they need to do to support the other so that our team does better. So you are absolutely right about the manager becomes less important. Doesn't mean insignificant, right? Doesn't mean, hey, be a great manager so we don't care about you anymore. Be a great manager so you can become a great executive. Keep going up the ladder.
So I'll tell you the move that I made within my business. With my inside sales team, I removed the middle manager. They all report to me.
Wow. All right. So I got a little problem with that.
Well, let me just tell you though. So really who they all report to each other.
Okay.
And so what I've created is an environment in which they partner with their regional account manager. Okay. So they're tied. The inside salesperson is tied to the outside salesperson, and they're accountable to each other. And then the inside sales team is then accountable again to each other within their group. And then same with the regional account managers. So when just a couple of examples. So when each of them put out their weekly report, everybody puts a report out Monday, and it's just focused on priorities. It's a short report, just an email report, along with the actual sales reports that we get. They all get that on Monday, but it goes to everybody. It goes to the entire team. So it's not just going to a manager to read visibility. Over. Total transparency and visibility. Yeah. And so you can't hide. Like I can just tell you that what we've created.
You can fake it for like a period, but it's going to come out in the wash.
Now,
They're gonna figure it out.
I don't think what I just did, by the way, so I want to preface this with some context. I don't think it's the long-term play. It's not. But what I will tell you is the way it was structured previously wasn't working. And having that middle management wasn't working. So what I recognized is I had to change the strategy. I had to change the structure, the org structure accordingly, exactly as I just described it. And then I wanted to step in directly to create a scenario where there was a culture of that accountability within the team. And then at some point, the right person will be a great fit to step into that.
So my
management
concern
role.
with that, the long-term concern with that is the development piece, right?
Yeah.
You
No.
don't have time to develop 12 people.
No.
Right?
No,
You can handle 6.
Yeah.
You can't handle 12.
Yeah.
And so this is what the back to the one-on-one
Yeah.
conversation that,
Yeah.
that I think is so important is that, a change like that could like energize people. The problem with it is that they're going to get disenergized at some point because they're not going to have that connection.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and that's why I gave you that context. Is that was a short term solution to the problem, not a long term solution to the problem for sure. And what I will tell you is that it works, and it has worked,
Good.
and continues to work. But I am reaching that point. I think by year end is that it'll be time for either somebody. What I'd love is for that to happen internally.
One of the team members step up.
I would love for that to happen internally, and then move to develop that person appropriately. If not, we'll look to hire outside.
All right. So let's go back to the employee experience. This has been a good conversation, but I believe that the employee experience starts way before the people even start working, right? So in the interviewing process,
Yeah, it does.
right? The class, the dignity that your company shows. What people want to see is that the company is being represented by whoever's interviewing them, whether it's the CEO, another C-level person, a manager, an HR person, that is a representation of the company. So it starts there. It goes into onboarding and how we onboard people. And now how we onboard people in this remote environment, completely different than how we used to do it, when people were coming into an office.
Yeah.
Right. So there's some things that we need to consider on the onboarding process and making sure people feel engaged. I've got some tools and some techniques that I think work, and love to talk to you about them. In fact, we'll probably make that a future podcast. But onboarding becomes the next thing. Trainings after that. The coaching comes after that. The mentoring comes after that. And we're talking about employee experience. I'm not talking about parties or ice cream socials or even virtual happy hours.
No.
Nothing wrong with those things, though.
Yeah.
I think they're fine. I think they're great. It's a great way to get people connected in a different way. But I'm talking about other things like living the culture being mission, vision, and values. What is the vision of the organization? What is it that you've set? What is the vision or the values of the organization?
Well,
and are the people that I'm looking at living those values?
Well, you better live it. That's the important thing. You just said it. You better live it. And I've been in many an organization that the mission statement and the values are bullshit. They're just statements. It's all
up
they
on a wall
are.
somewhere.
They're not living
Looks
it.
cool.
Well, and by the way, it's not like some of the companies live in it and some of the companies not. That doesn't work either. So like if as an executive team, the owner, the CEO, you're like, yeah, I've instilled all these values in the rest of the team, but I don't really.
They have to live it.
No, that doesn't work either. Like you have to be 100% committed to your mission statement and to your brand purpose, the brand promise, like whatever that promise is, and you have to live the values. And by the way, they're going to sniff it out right away. So you talk about the onboarding process. And people are going to understand very, very quickly of whether you do have a culture that lives the values and lives the mission or not. It's pretty black and white. And if you live that culture and you live those values and those values align with the person that you're hiring, their experience is going to go through the roof, which directly impacts performance and ultimately engagement. And that's where you get high employee retention.
So have you heard of the Net Promoter Score?
Of course.
Something Bain & Company set up, and they said, go to your customers and ask this question. And the question is, would you be a reference for or promote this company's products and services.
Yeah.
And if they score a 9 and 10, they are a promoter.
Yeah.
If they score an 8 and 9, they're kind of neutral.
Yeah.
7, 8, 9, they're neutral. 6 and under, they're a detractor.
Yeah.
So a net promoter score says take your 9s and 10s, add those up, subtract them from your 0s to 6s, and you get this net promoter score. And if you're not at least an 8.5, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So there's such a thing as an employee net promoter score, the same thing. Would you recommend this company to a friend to come to work here?
Yeah.
What a great question. Very simplistic, but it's a very good question to ask your employees. Would they recommend to a friend that they come and work here? And if you're not at least an 8.5, and I'm going to suggest 9.5, you got some work to do on this employee engagement stuff.
All right.
Experience.
So let's hand out some nuggets.
Okay.
Top 3 things that a company could do today to start to improve the employee experience. Doesn't have to be 3. It could be 1 or 2,
Yeah.
but at the most, top 3 things a company could do today to improve upon employee experience.
Number one, without a doubt, we agree on this, and we might disagree on how we accomplish this, and that is develop your mid-level managers, because that's who your people are reporting to and talking to and seeing every single day. So the development of the mid-level managers is the number one thing that I think you can do. The second thing that I think you can do is communicate the processes throughout the organization, from the culture, from the executives, all the way down through the mid-management, the communication on not only what we do, but why we do it. And then make sure that you know what your part in this is. That each employee understands how they relate to the overall, not just success of the company financially, but the success of the company on something like a net promoter score, right? And then the third thing I think you can do is develop the rest of the people. So people want to see growth, even if they're going to leave in a few years. My responsibility is to help young people grow.
Yeah.
If I did those 3 things, I think the employee experience will be better.
Yeah.
Notice I didn't say pay in there. Now, pay is important, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it wasn't in my top 3.
Yeah. Well, I agree. So 1 and 3 for me, what you chose, which is development. I don't think, singling out one specific, whether management, whatever that is, development of all
Everybody.
your people. Like,
Okay.
I just think that's absolutely critical. And to me, it's just, so if you can do one thing, it's change your mindset from training to development. Training is still relevant.
Yeah.
So you still have to train on some tactics and some specific things. Totally get that. Okay. So I'm not saying you dismiss training, but shift the mindset to developing people, develop them as better human beings. And the amount of return you'll get from that is exponential. So shift that mindset. Secondarily, for me, it's communication. If you don't focus on communication, forget about it. You're never going to have the culture you think you're going to have, and you're never going to improve your employee experience. When the employee knows what's going on with the company and they feel communicated to, they're clear on their role and responsibility, which is all driven by communication, the employee experience just goes through the roof. Communication, that's number 2. And number 3 for me is go back and recheck your values, recheck your mission statement and your brand promise. You should be looking into that at least annually. You should be doing a check on, 1, are these the right values? Is this the right mission? And are we living up to it? Are we actually living in it? And so you got to do that double check on that. And then you got to ask yourself the question if you're actually living it. And if you're not, then time to redo and collaborate on those values and that mission and commit to living it.
All right. We're going to end here. This is a great conversation. We can keep going on this a long time. So what we were drinking today, mine is
went down way
Go
too
on.
easy, by the way. Way too easy.
Left Coast Brewery, San Clemente local. We had a double IPA today called the Big Office. 8% alcohol. Haven't felt that yet. Maybe by the next podcast I might. Smooth and good. I was really impressed with this beer.
Super impressed. Like I said, that went down way too easy. That's one of those ones where, if we were actually, there tonight, I'd have 2 of those, and before I knew it, I'm like, wow, that just went down too easy. Uber
Well,
time.
if you didn't talk so much, you might have been finished. Wait, there's my.
True statement.
This is really good. Left Coast Brewery in San Clemente. This one was called Big Office, the double IPA. It's worthwhile.
Check us out at the ceopodcast.net. Appreciate you listening. And again, feedback, questions, any of those type of things, please reach out. We want it all. Till next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us for the CEO Podcast. To learn more about Scott and Vince, please visit theceopodcast.net and check out the calendar to tune in for our next episode. While on the site, you can also listen to past episodes, access additional content created for our listeners, and if you would like to dive deeper into any topic, there is an option to schedule some time with Scott or Vince. Thanks for listening.